Hi, this is Rob Thomas, and welcome to this particular YouTube video. We're going to talk about job hunting and networking. So the first thing we'll talk about is some job hunting facts and observations. Some of these are from research. Some of these are from I've done literally hundreds of hours of reading and talking around job hunting and networking. And let's talk about a few of those things. The first one, of course, and this is an old one that sometimes we're like, yeah, they got the job because they know somebody. Yeah, they did. At least 80% of the time, the Harvard Business School has researched, and it certainly is about who you know. And we're going to talk about that. And we're actually going to build that muscle for you, or at least teach you how to build that muscle, especially for yourself, in building both a personal and professional network. It's also about sticking with it, right? And having that perseverance. It's really easy, to try, to fail, and to quit. And a lot of what we're going to talk about, one of the main themes or mantras throughout these videos is going to be about sticking with it. It's tough. I get it. There's an average corporate job today has 250 applicants, sometimes as many as 500. And this is a numbers game, certainly, but we're also going to talk about a targeted strategy to really hyper-focus what your job hunting kind of tactic is going to look like. And it's also about what you know. One of the things that kind of is like the Willy Wonka ticket, or the keys that open doors, is your level of certification, your level of education. But there's a lot of these that you can do and upgrade and upskill online, especially now for free. So make sure that along with your building your network and going out and looking and job hunting, even if you're employed, is you have to start thinking about the short and long-term goals that you have for your career, and increasing your level of certification and increasing your level of education is always going to do nothing but help you, to advance your career and actually increase your earnings. And there's statistics and data around the average income that people earn when they have, let's say, a high school education versus a PhD or anything in between. So anything that you can do to upskill, certify, and increase your education is going to open doors and increase your earnings. The other thing I want to talk about is always being ready. And we'll talk about some of the ways to do that and some of the tactics, but have all of your documentation, your resume, your cover letters, all of that should be a mouse click away from you being able to shoot it to somebody. And even if you're in a job currently, get it up to date, keep it ready with your current job, because you might get a call, you might get an email, you might get a text about a job, and sometimes the first one in wins. And it's impressive, and it's something that sticks in people's minds. So be ready all the time to be able to leap and jump on a job and apply. And be prepared. Do your research the company if you can, research what their passion is about, what their business model is, what drives them, maybe what charities they support. And when you go to the interview, always be ready to have questions about the company, what they do, and make sure that you show evidence that you've taken the time to be ready for those conversations. We've all been here before. We've struggled through various forms of recessions. In 2009, with 15.3 million folks unemployed, in 2014 with 9.6 million, and then here last year in 2020 with upwards of 36 million in May. But we've recovered, we've overcome, and some of us have been impacted. I've been laid off before, and I've had to retool, rethink, and restart my career in many different ways over the course of my lives. So this again is about perseverance, and that we can get to the next level, we can find employment, and that we can be safe again and start building a new life. One of the things, though, that I think we should talk about is, now that we're a little bit into the video, is why would you want to listen to me? What do I know that maybe you don't? I've had over 50 jobs over the course of my life in all different trades and industries, from masonry to IT, high-tech virtualization, and everything in between. And I've often had two jobs. I've also done a lot of different types of volunteer work, which I include when I count my jobs, because there's some volunteer gigs that I've had where I like showed up every Sunday for 6 months or a year and was committed. And the reason why I include those is not only because it was work, but it's also part of my personal and professional network. And it's something that I've used and I've built and I lean back into and use as a resource now and forever going forward throughout my life. And it's just something I certainly want to make sure that you consider as part of this as we go forward. But one of the problems that I had with these years of experience that I've had in the workforce is that I never really had a plan. Up until like maybe the last 12 to 15 years, I started to create one. But for the first almost 30 some years of my working career, I just kind of followed the flow and did whatever was in front of me, and maybe followed a relationship or followed a best friend, or there was a geographic change and I moved from state to state or moved to another country, and I wouldn't even like have a job when I landed. I would just figure it out when I got there. When you're young and single, maybe that works, but I never really had, as a young man, I never had the mentorship. Growing up in the childcare system, I didn't have parents, and I certainly didn't have like professional parents that were already wealthy or secure in their careers or had a dynasty of generations of security where they would automatically teach this, and it was kind of the genetic culture of their family or their circle of friends. I had to start out from scratch, like many of you, I would think, that would be interested in maybe the information in a video like this. But one of the downsides with my plan or lack thereof was, always starting over, always starting at the bottom, and having to kind of rebuild a career in a different industry. I worked in cryogenics, I worked in telephony, I worked in construction, now I work in IT. And the other thing with that is that I always also followed kind of the path of least resistance, where I would take the first job that was offered to me because I was broke or I was unemployed, or it was less of a headache. But now I have a plan, and now I have a career path, and now that's all changed. And that's really what this video series is going to be about, is that the plan that I've developed that's made me successful. I actually have two jobs now. I have a day job that's a very secure, healthy job in a growing industry with a very healthy 6-digit salary. And my life is financially good and secure. And now I'm doing this and other things as a second job to even build that further and to work on building my happiness and security. And one of the things that's been kind of interesting, when my perspective changed, and when I decided to actually start to focus on building a life and building security and building happiness and building a plan, that the conversations that I started having with my family and the mentors that I started to collect around me, deliberately and consciously looking for professional mentors and for spiritual mentors, in the idea of alignment and serendipity almost, and kind of like an almost kind of funny, magical occurrence of things, and seemingly coincidence, where these same type of topics of having, the application of a plan and not giving up and sticking with it and working through some of the dips in my life, were coming up in movies and coming up in books that I was reading and coming up in conversations with my family and friends repeatedly. And it's this concept that we all know about focus, where we're pointing our nose. And one of the funniest things that I heard for that was like, if you're always looking down at the sidewalk looking for dog poop, that's what you're going to find. But if you got your head up and your chin up and you're looking for opportunity and you're focused on advancing your life, that these things are going to kind of manifest in your life. And it depends upon where my brain is and where my focus is, and literally where my nose is pointed in my life. And I think it's really important. And I've struggled with this, and I've struggled with depression, and I've struggled with, a seemingly lack of opportunity in my life. But when I was willing to put in the time and I was willing to focus and sweat and actually focus and work on things, things started to change. And that's been my experience and a little bit about my work history and what got me here today at a really high level. But I want to talk a little bit about like when I first kind of started on this refined journey, like how bad did I want it? And one of the things that happened in my life is that, you know, I had a day job. I decided and I was committed to kind of try to stick with IT as a career path, but I had kind of a crappy day IT job. And I had one of those awful mortgages like before the housing market crashed. You know, I signed one of those crappy mortgages because I was living with my mother and father-in-law with my wife, and we were like, we had to get out of the house, you know. And so I was looking for a second job to help make ends meet. And I'm applying like a lot of people did during that last recession, and it was awful. And a lot of my friends were out of work. And that was really like the thing or the catalyst that actually started me writing and teaching this class years ago. But in looking for that job, I'm sending out literally dozens, hundreds of resumes, getting very little traction out in the marketplace. And there was this one job that was a good fit, and it was something where it was kind of like a skill set next to my skill set where I could kind of get a little closer to like technology and a retail job. But I didn't get the job. You know, I was way overqualified. I had done engineering and other design work and telephony, and they were like, why would you take this job? You're just going to leave. And I would go and drive out of my way to this retail electronics store 3 or 4 nights a week. And I would walk in the store and I would find the floor salesman and go, hi. And his name was Bob, you know, kind of too. And I was like, hi, it's Rob. And he goes, like, hi, Rob, what are you doing here? And I would say, hey, I want a job. And he's like, yeah, whatever, get out of here. And I'd go and find the store manager. And again, same thing, introduce myself. Sometimes he'd be in the back and I would have them call him and get him to come out of his office in the back. He would have me be a little annoyed, you know. But I wanted the job bad enough. And I showed them that I was committed. And I promised them, you know, when we finally sat down to talk about it, that I wouldn't just leave. And I committed to stay there for a year. And with that commitment and in literally months of badgering them, they gave me the job. And it ended up, even though it was like an $8 an hour, like sales retail job, there was commission on the back end. And I was a hustler and I actually made pretty good money. But I just wanted to share with you like one of my many, but one of my little stories about how bad I wanted it. And I've shared this story with friends and some of the live teaching seminars where I've taught this class. And they would tell me stories about one of my really good friends was a contractor for the county. And I think he spent, I think it was like 12 or 18 months as a contractor, literally getting the crappiest, dirtiest jobs, having to work with waste, even human waste and sewers. And they literally like a hazing thing, and just to see how much he was willing to take. And he finally like worked through it and they gave him a job. And another woman that was a teacher that could not get a teaching job. And she would volunteer like in after school programs for, I think it was even several years in her story, and weekends and other things for free. And just kept like putting her name in there and getting involved and staying and keeping on top of the radar. And eventually she got offered a job as a teacher there. And how bad did they want it? And what were they willing to do to set themselves up in a career that they wanted to be in, and something that they felt that was going to be important to either their advancement or something that was going to make them happy. So this is something that, again, is kind of the setup for this conversation is, how bad do I want it? How bad do you want it? Are you willing to do the work? And this level of commitment, you know, we have to define that, you know, and where we're willing to put in the sweat and to make the sacrifice to be able to advance our happiness, you know, and to advance our financial security and to advance the potential for building a different blueprint where beyond a successful or secure retirement, maybe we could even do something more interesting and different, and maybe do micro retirements or other things with a more modern thinking type of life, career, and retirement blueprint. So imagine that I'm unemployed and I sleep for 8 hours a day. I've got 16 hours that I could be using to build my happiness, that I could build a future, that I could be working to build a job career. And If I worked 1 hour a day, that's 6% of my time. But really, the amount of effort that I'm going to be willing to put in is going to give me a certain amount of results. What am I willing to do? But imagine if I double that, and then I put in 2 hours of a 16-hour day. It's only 12% of my time. This is actually a pretty decent, believe it or not, amount of time to actually job search. I would love to get a statistic about like how long people actually job search when they're unemployed. I should probably try to find that and add that to this course at some point. But imagine 2 hours a day and you're throwing dozens, maybe hundreds of resumes out there into the marketplace. But imagine if you tweak that effort and it becomes very disciplined and very focused, and you've got a framework and you've built a plan around a very targeted job search approach. Imagine how productive that would be for even just 2 hours a day. And let's double it again. Let's take 25% of our 16-hour day if we're unemployed, or even if I have a job, then it's 50% of my time, which is huge. And really, if you work 4 hours a day for job hunting and building your network and everything, I can't guarantee, but I can kind of wink and say, things are going to get better. And that's probably as much or more than most people actually work at a day job. Like consistent effort. Like you're going to get distracted and be doing email and chit-chatting with your friends if you're already at a job. But that's a lot of really good, concentrated, undistracted, focused effort that you're applying towards a task. And that task doesn't necessarily have to be that you're looking for a job because you're unemployed. It could be that you already have a job and you're trying to set yourself up for something better. Or it could be that you already have a day job and maybe you're building a company. Maybe you're building an alternate revenue stream. Maybe you're building future financial independence on a level that you never could have achieved in working for another company, which is certainly something that I want to do now with videos like this and other things that I'm doing on my nights and weekends, because that's one of my goals for happiness and achievement going forward. So one of the things that we usually skip in a lot of these how-to videos is some of the basics and some of the fundamentals and a foundation underneath all of these things that I'm talking about. You've got to sleep. You've got to have a regular schedule. It's really hard for me always because I'm a night owl, but especially when I've been unemployed and my clock starts to kind of roll as I'm like flipping through Netflix or something on TV like I shouldn't be. And, I'm on YouTube till all hours of the early morning. And I've got to be a little bit self-disciplined. I've got to, do my adulting and get some sleep, set a schedule, set aside a block of time for actually doing the task. Like I commit and I schedule in advance time to be able to sit down and do these videos, or to do my job hunt, or to work on other aspects of my business, merchandising and other things. And there's certain times I do like social media marketing work as well. And so I have like regimented times that I spend streaming and doing other things like, on Twitch. So it's just making sure that I'm committed and I'm disciplined and I'm scheduled for whatever tasks are in front of me, and sticking to that schedule as consistently as I can. I'm human, I break the rules sometimes, but we talk about these, like the good and bad decisions that we make, the micro decisions. And when I have a good schedule and I keep setting myself up with a good decision, it reinforces and makes the next good decision a little easier. And I kind of stack those in a row, like dominoes. I can also do that with bad decisions. So think about that. And also, of course, part of this foundation is the fuel. Fueling the machine, which is my body, and resting, and also fueling the machine, which is my mind. And good nutrition, getting garbage in, garbage out, and how I'm treating my body, and what kind of nutrition I'm putting in there, and whether or not I'm getting a little fitness and exercise, and taking care of the machine, and being physical helps me to sleep, getting the good rest helps me to be focused and disciplined, having the right nutrition helps my brain, and this is all a circle of where everything supports everything else. So think about these things going forward and make some of these little micro changes if you don't already have these things in your life. They'll certainly help you to be more successful. And some of the things that I like around this is things that I've heard and things that kind of stuck with me, is one of them is around motivation. I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with health issues. that have given me physiological issues that affected my ability to function and focus. And I had to get that stuff straightened out. But nobody's going to do this for me. I've got to find a way internally to keep my focus and to keep my motivation going. And it's not always easy. And one of the things that I've found to do is I cheat. And I've got friends now in my circle that are also motivated. So sometimes I've got to raise the bar of the people that are in my circle, and we feed off of each other. And so there's other people in my life now that are motivated and want to build a better life for themselves and are building businesses, and we help each other and we support each other. So it's certainly something to think about from a motivation perspective. Yes, it absolutely comes from within, but sometimes you can cheat and surround yourself with other winners. One of the other things that kind of helps me with my motivation is also kind of having some type of really specific goal. I want to change my life. I want to be happy. But there's also some things I want to do out there in the world. And there's things out in the world that I want to change. And as I'm building my presence in my new business with social media, I'm starting to see these little niches or little areas of things like, well, you know, that could be maybe tweaked and made better and maybe even turned into a revenue stream all on its own. And then, so there's these little things that are personally motivating or personally that I can change. And then there's external things and they can be combined. And what's really cool is that I talk about this with some of my friends in my circle, and their light bulb goes on and they think of an idea for their thing. And all of this is almost like kind of a popcorn effect, where it's like pop, 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 where the ideas come personally and professionally from development and business. And it becomes this, I can't even keep up with all of it. Like I use an application where I just like dump my ideas in there like a notepad. And I go in there when I have a moment and I grab one of the ideas and I use it. And one of the other things that is really important to me, you know, you've heard me mention is about being happy, you know, and about developing that positive attitude, and not just like a corny fake one, but one that really comes deep from within. I am not going to find happiness like laying out in a field somewhere, you know, with all the pretty flowers and I could just go pick it up. At least from my life experience, it's something that I've had to work for. And it's something from an internal journey of personal development and healing, but also externally from building a life of fulfillment and financial security and happiness, and even giving back, you know, and developing a sense of generosity, you know, and almost a sense of gratitude and even wonderment at what my life has become. But I had to do the work. It didn't just kind of happen and manifest on its own. And again, this is something that's self-fulfilling, where I do a good thing, good things happen. Sometimes I do a good thing and it doesn't work out at all. But I'm finding there's a sense of almost childlike trust in knowing that 99.99% of the time, if I'm working towards doing good things in my life and good things for other people, again, it comes back 1,000-fold. And I have a life that is full and rich of friends and connections and love. And in my life, the momentum of it just keeps going. And all of this is tied together in the project of job hunting and building a personal and professional network and the inner journey. All of these things are connected. And of course, one of my favorite Japanese proverbs, you know, and falling down 7 times and getting up an 8th time, standing up again and again and again. And some of us, you know, like in my life specifically, you know, we get kicked in the teeth a lot, you know, whether it's relationships, whether it's jobs, whether it's career, whether it's another bankruptcy. With me, I've had lots of physical health challenges throughout the course of my life. And I've started over again and again, and I've gotten up. I've been homeless. I've lived out of my car. I've been completely broke. And I've also been able to build a life. And again, and maybe I'll have to do it again. We don't know where the future is going to be. But I have, again, this almost childlike faith in the fact that no matter how many times I've been knocked down, I can always get up again and try. I can always get up again and I can build. So having a little bit of faith and self-confidence even in myself And in the process has really been helped me to kind of be able to bounce back up and, get up and swing again. And it's just something that I want to share with you, that no matter what's happened in my life, I've been able to do it, and you can do it too. So this conversation has been around the setup and developing the framework in parts of the conversation that we're going to have going forward around various topics. The next topic we're actually going to dive in, where I get into building that strength, that pool or reservoir that I talked about with a personal and even professional network. And eventually that becomes one and the same in some ways. And a lot of the people now that are in my professional network and part of my really close, tight circle are also some of my best friends. And you'll kind of notice as you go through this journey and you build this network that circle continues to grow in strength and character and depth. And all of us are always here for each other going forward. And having that security and that backup I've never had. I've like I said, coming from the child care system and being in foster care, I didn't necessarily have that family to fall back on. So I built my own. But imagine if you already have that core family that you've got, and then building that extended family around it, the strength and the power and the depth of all of that. And it's a reservoir that I can go back to time and time again. And I also have to give back to it. But again, it's a give and take, but I always get so much more from everyone in my network. And the power of that has just been undiminished and amazing in my life. And it's something that we'll talk about in the next video, so you can build something like that for yourself. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.